A couple of things to talk about today. First up is going to be the GoRuck kit bag 32 liter. This is the old style now. It wasn't made in the USA as when they transitioned to Vietnam, so the price point came down, but it was still the 1000 denier cordura nylon. And it actually came with the shoulder strap, which they didn't use to. That was usually expensive add-on. So that was actually a nice change about that move to Vietnam, as they've just kind of kept the same quality but made it more affordable. The kit bag's gone through some iterations now. It's a little bit less simple. Other fabrics are kind of in play here, but I think for duffel bag stuff, this is pretty simple. This was kind of the best way to build it. So the size on it is kind of deceiving. This looks, relatively small, but there is a whole lot of volume to this thing, and you make the most out of that 32 liters. It's a good multi-purpose bag, road trips, gym. I took it to the range. There's a lot of versatile ways to do that. I think the kit bag is kind of underrated in that way. It's a good sidekick, so I take this to events. The Ruck and all the event gear will be in one, and all the support gear, change of clothes, food, fuel, all that is going in this. So it's a great adjunct bag for a lot of scenarios. Now, following the trips that I've done one bag travel style with the GR1 and that M23, even though the M23, I was able to fit more than that 26 liter GR1, I was still maxed out, and we were talking maybe like a 4-day kind of process. So one, yes, the packing style and the packing list could probably be revised and packed differently, but how to maximize the amount of carrying capacity within the restrictions of the airlines these days, I was starting to think of ways to kind of utilize this. So dimensionally, this will fit under just about most airline seats that you're going to find. And because of its kind of, brick shape to it, you're going to kind of maximize that volume underneath the seat. Because of the lack of structure in here, because this is just the bag, there's no frame sheet, there's no nothing, you can kind of mold this and kind of fit into whatever space that you need. So that was one thing, maximize carrying capacity on the flight. Now, because it is just a duffel bag and the shoulder strap isn't bad, but weighed down, this gets a bit bulky, it gets awkward, we're banging around, not as fun to carry for the long distance. And then when you arrive at your destination, probably not going to want to tote this around. So that comes to the second part about what's in this. Only change, modification, I guess you could say, was the zipper pulls on here. I swapped those out for a color contrasted set from Maxpedition. This would be their zipper pulls. There's two sizes to these guys, and here they actually look like they're the large. These are the small. I have no idea how big the large ones are, but I mean, this is enough to get a whole lot of finger in there pretty quick at small. And it's just super easy. Just make the loop through there, pull it tight, and it's a very easy change. Because it's all black on black with this really large rain flap that comes over it, trying to look for these zipper pulls is a little bit harder than I thought. But it does make the whole experience a whole lot kind of simpler and smoother. Now in this, unpack a little bit, comes to the second part of kind of using this in a travel kind of scenario. So without that structure of a frame sheet or something in there to keep its shape, even like taking it to the range when it's loaded down with ammunition, it tends to bow pretty good. So I wanted to use something else as both kind of a frame sheet for structure and support, and then also something to use on site when I get where I'm going. So that will become then the 16 liter Bullet laptop edition. So this one is a more recent acquisition. This has got the 500 denier cordura fabric with the 210 backing right there. And then as far as more recent updates, we've had a couple of bullets from older times. We do have the same lumbar pad that is brought over from the Rucker, which has worked out much better than I actually thought. As far as where this lands on my back, this height, I think it's like 18 and a half It's very similar to the Rucker. It might be slightly longer looking at the website. That back panel fits perfect. It lands exactly where I want it. So to break it in, I threw a 30-pound plate in here, put about 5 miles on it to kind of get the feel for how that's going to be loaded down. Overall, the bullet, kind of separating this from the rest of the video, is 80% of a GR1. Really is. The overall design DNA is there. It's about the same overall height. The width is a little bit narrower compared to like that 20-liter Rucker up there. It does have a couple other things that make this a little bit faster and easier to pack. One, there is no rain flap out along these zippers, so especially with the 20s and 21s, that more boxy shape, the zippers tend to caught up on the corner. So depending on if you got one of these Carryology collab ones, there's actually a fair amount of force that you have to do. All of this is just extremely smooth. The zipper pulls, that was just something that my lovely wife did up for me. Add a little color to it, just some 550 cord. But being that it's 500D, it is a little bit softer, it's a little bit more pliable. The front pocket becomes a little bit more useful than it does in the 1000D, which has a whole lot less give. Overall layout, basically if you've seen a GR1, a Bullet, a Rucker, it's the same. It does actually have zippers, unlike the Rucker. Up in here though, this is your plate pocket if you want to use it for that. The laptop compartment isn't really recommended to be used with the weight plates. They used to, but they got tired of having people smash up their zippers and then having to fix it. Of the Bullet line, with kind of the 16-liter and beyond, when they started making those changes, the frame sheet in here is stout. It's probably a carryover from the Bullet Rucker. This is a very stout frame sheet. So loading up the plate in here, it's a great experience under weight. Pause. The largest difference that is noticeable when it comes to using a Bullet, especially under load, is that the shoulder straps themselves, they are not the same as the Rucker and the GR1. They are a little bit narrower and they are physically thinner. Still a fair amount of padding. This is still, I would say, on par with like a Tom Bin or similar bags where, yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. It's not like most packable day packs where it's just a very nominal thin piece of webbing. So, I mean, you still have the padding, but if you're used to the experience of like the GR1 and the Rucker and those shoulder straps, which they're kind of known for, you do notice this, especially over time. Loading it up with 30 and a water bladder, experience-wise, just putting 5 miles on it, I would say it's kind of similar to having the 20-liter loaded up with my 45-pound plate. Not horrible, but you notice the difference, but still doable in the end. At this particular time, with this particular model, they still have the hydration port pass-through. They have not carried over that quick access pocket, which all of the GR1s and 2s and bags of that kind are kind of heading towards. So in this current state, I know the lineup is always changing. The current standard 16-liter Bullet laptop edition carries most of the old kind of features from the GR1, which gives it the most versatility. So could be day bag, could be EDC bag, travel, hiking, and people have done events with these. So all of that is possible with this. Now back to use in conjunction with the kit bag. So unstructured, it will get you from A to B as far as the airports go. When you get to your site, what are you left with? What are you gonna do? So this, because it does have that extremely stout frame sheet in there, that is now going to act as the frame sheet for the bag. So like just kind of collapsing it up right in there, stuff this right in the bottom. It's a little on the tighter side, but not a whole lot of fuss. And so now we have a pretty well supported kind of bag to load from. You can use that as a packing cube itself, which is not a bad way to go. The 16 liters, it does hold a bit. And then adding the I kind of just use for reference the Peak Design medium packing cube, which normally that plus the small will fill up the majority of that 26 liter GR1. And we still have layers upon layers to go. So you can really maximize that 32 liter capacity, have some options when you get to your destination, and I think will plug in very, very well in the very restricted space for air travel these days. So as far as the kit bag goes, there isn't a ton else to say to it. Its simplicity is kind of its strength. It's very versatile. There isn't a whole lot going on with it. It's a really overbuilt duffel bag. If that's what you're looking for, a lot of ways to use it. A lot of people on Reddit will kind of show how to use that. The bullet, also versatile in its own way. So I have seen people that do one bag travel with something only this big. I have seen the GoRuck 10 liter packing cube where they don't zip it up, they leave it unzipped in clamshell, and that will actually take up the majority of the room in here, but not so much the depth, allowing you to actually pack a lot more in here than you think. Weights wise, that plate pocket is compatible with the 30-pound expert plate, Rucker plate, whatever the terminology is now. And without a Velcro closure or anything, it's probably not going to be recommended to take to an event so the thing doesn't slide out and tag you in the head. However, for just, kind of everyday bombing around, doing some rucking, that's a pretty simple option. It's also compatible with the sand ruck plates that just came out. This is the 15-pounder sitting in the same exact slot. It's a little bit more of an experience to actually get this in there because while it's not quite as wide as the expert plate, the depth is a little bit more. But it's a pretty tight fit, which means that you can look at the bullet as your entry-level ruck. The price point is a lot cheaper than the Ruckers, the GR1s, and everything that's available. So and this question comes up a lot on places like Reddit or some of the Facebook groups, is all right, I'm looking to kind of dip my toes into this silly world full of weirdos that do stuff like this. What's like an entry-level bag that allow me to do the most stuff with it? And the bullet in this format could be that answer. So being a lot cheaper, you have about 80% of a GR1. You have the ability to get plates if you want, or the cheaper option, getting the sand ruck plates, starting light, starting low, dipping your toes into it. It works for EDC, it works for travel. Like everything, it's gonna be kind of a generalist, but to kind of just get that experience, get a feel for the product, this is probably a good entry point into this. It's a gateway bag. It's also not a bad dad bag or dog bag in this case. The carabiner on the front Molly is where I attach his leash to, and we keep all of our little doggy treats, toys, anything that kind of comes up as we kind of go out places as a family. So as far as like the entry point in the GoRuck and do the most things, 16-liter bullet will probably do it. Now, as far as kind of the plethora of fabrics and choices that are out there in GoRuck's lineup currently, the robic is one of the newer, more popular ones. The M23 has got it. The newer belt bags and a lot of these products are carrying the robic fabric. So side by side between the 500D and the robic, I would say the robic tends to feel actually a little bit thicker and more substantial as a fabric. It is slicker to the touch. Pet hair, dust, all that stuff tends to kind of wipe and roll right off it. The 500D does tend to grab onto it a little bit more, so you get a lot of the fuzzies, the dog hair. Looking it up, the tensillary strength between the two, the 500D, I guess, is going to be better. Weight-wise, I feel like the 500D is like a little bit lighter, taking into consideration that with the robic, there's usually, they've got it lined with something, so that can contribute to kind of that overall feel. So if it comes down between the two, it's really not going to be an event bag, so therefore it doesn't really matter. It's whatever is the cheapest, lightest, or your favorite color. I don't think you're really going to go wrong in either case. The M23, which I've been using for work and travel and doing it continuously, is showing no signs of wear, just like that GR1, that's a 1000D, that's over a year old, and I've also worked and traveled and done stuff with it. Can't really tell the difference. Kind of just the feel you're looking for. Do you want something that feels maybe very, very slick and shiny like a technical fabric that's got more weather resistance, or do you want to go with the cordura route that's going to have, you know, a lot more longevity and durability, and sometimes you just want that sturdy feel to it. So kind of apples and oranges. I think you're not going to really go wrong either way. And now he's scratching to go in, so probably time to call it.